Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Board Gaming Doctor. My name is Phil, and I'll be your board game doctor today. So, I'm going to go over a bunch of games that I've played in the month of March as well as last month in February. I did not get to a recap type of episode because in the last month, as you can see, I really focused on playing some of my favorite games. A lot of these Rosenberg games were played and featured on the channel, so if you haven't seen those, feel free to do so. I had a lot of fun. Life got pretty busy, and I wasn't able to get to all the games that I wanted to play. There are still a bunch of both small and large box games from Rosenberg that I wasn't able to feature, and so I'll try to feature those in future videos. But I'm going to go quickly through a bunch of first impressions and reviews of some games that stood out to me or that I feel like I should talk about in the last 2 months. So buckle up, and here we go. The first game that I want to talk about is The Architects of Amytis. So this game was a fairly average game for me. I thought it was interesting in the way that you're combining a tic-tac-toe type of mechanism with like tile placement and I guess not set collection, but like pattern building, essentially. You have a bunch of these different colored buildings that you're trying to put into these patterns, as well as these goals that you're trying to meet as well throughout the game. So I think the thing that stood against me in this game was the fact that there are a lot of there is a lot of randomness in what tiles you are grabbing, and so at times it felt kind of frustrating in a bad way, right, to not have the kind of tile that you needed. And sure, you could probably get away with stacking some tiles on top of another to allow yourself to gain some points through these other goals that you're trying to meet. However, I just felt kind of hindered in my one play of it. So my first impression was kind of lukewarm with this game, but maybe I need to take a deeper look to see if there is more to this game that meets the eye. So next is Aquatica. This game is from 2019. That at the time that I played this was an alpha on Board Game Arena. I think it's now in beta. But what you're essentially doing in this game is recruiting these characters to your hand. It's kind of a deck building sort of game where you play these cards to gather locations to your board, and these locations give you points as well as abilities as they slide up the mat. If you imagine this in physical format, these cards would fit underneath these slots, and so when you move them up, they give you certain benefits. So there's some deck building, there's racing to get these points, there's synergy between the cards in this deck as well as the locations that you're trying to go for. There aren't too many characters, at least in this, from what I can tell. There's only like 10 in this deck, plus all of these that some of them are duplicated as well. And you have a lot of locations that you're going for as well, so that's where most of the variability is. So this game was fun. I really enjoyed the synergies of mechanisms that are featured in this game. It's not something that immediately screams replayability to me, for me, I should say. I think a lot of people would enjoy this game and enjoy the nuances that it provides, and perhaps it feels like a pretty contained package that can feel very replayable. But for me, I think it's not as deep strategically to want to really play this. It doesn't interest me as much as perhaps some other games of similar complexities utilizing similar mechanisms as well. But I did enjoy this game and would happily play it if someone else suggested it. Okay, next is Flip 7. So this game is one that a lot of people have been talking about, at least in the circles that I've listened and watched. So this game is a card game that is sort of partyish, where you essentially are flipping cards over in a in a push your luck type of style. You have a really large deck of different cards that allow you to draw not only the numbered cards that you need, as well as some of these special cards that allow you to add to your values at the end of the round, or to interact with other people, like to freeze them, etc. The goal is to not push your luck too much and draw 2 cards of the same type or the same number. And after everyone has played, you will add up the sum of your cards, and whoever reaches 200 points first will trigger the end of the game, and whoever has the most points wins. So that's essentially the game. So it's really easy to learn and teach, and I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in this game. I I think I feel like this game is more fun than maybe my rating gives it to be. It'll be interesting when I re-rate one of my favorite games of a similar genre as this, which is Six Nimmt. I think this game provides the same chaos and excitement that Six Nimmt provides in a push your luck mechanism. So it feels like a mixture between Six Nimmt and Can't Stop. And so I really enjoy the interactive cards that are in this game. Cards like Second Chance here that give you an opportunity to try to pursue a really big point. You know, if you do flip 7 cards over that are different, you gain more points that way, right? And so kind of a shoot the moon type of mechanism here. So I do agree that this game has offered a lot of fun and replayability, and I can only imagine how fun this would be in person as well. And so that's why I do give it a very high fun rating. And so I wouldn't doubt if I were to revisit this game a little bit later if I tweak some of the numbers to make this reflect a higher opinion than what is on paper. And perhaps, you know, this is probably up there for one of my favorite, or at least one of the most interesting party games that I played in a while, and would love to play this again. So the next game is Word Limit. I was made known about this through the designer, and this is a word party game, or guessing game rather, where one person gives a type of clue in the form of, you know, you need to, or at least they have a number. Okay, so this game is kind of hard to describe just based off of what you might see. And so from what I remember, one person will have a list of these words, and the other people who are giving clues will be given a way to describe words that describe this clue, and whoever can come up with a word that fulfills that requirement first gets to be able to give the clue, and then the guesser has to get it right for points, right? And so this is all mediated through an app. It could also be done in physical form, I believe, but I played it through an app. Now, I thought this was okay. Like, it's definitely not the type of game that I tend to gravitate towards when it comes to more party-style games. I think this has the potential to make people feel not as competent when trying to come up with clues. You have to be dynamic and quick to come up with a clue that fits the requirements and restrictions that are given for you to generate that clue for the guesser. And so games that maybe are more welcoming to those who might feel like they have troubles being quick and fast with this are like Just One. And so I think Just One is justly more popular and easier to teach. It's easier to teach and also easier to have a wider variety of people who can play this game, take more time to come up with clues if need be, and go from there, right? And so if you do like games like Just One or Codenames, for example, Decrypto, this might be an interesting one to try out, especially if you like to give clues based off of restrictions. You can come up with some pretty clever things, but some of the restrictions include, like, come up with a word that's 5 letters long that describes Egypt, for example. So that's essentially what the restrictions are, and the app is well mediated to allow for a streamlined process for this to happen. But yeah, it is tough for those who aren't as quick to come up with clues, and that describes me, right? I do have difficulty in doing that, and so this game was harder for me to enjoy, but I can see others who do enjoy the style of games like, clue generation and giving would potentially enjoy this as well. Now, Art Society, this is a 2023 game that I played in person. And this game offers a few different mechanisms. Let's try to choose the best picture here. So you are building out a tableau of an art wall, right? You're hanging up your pieces of art and wall decor, and you are bidding on these tiles that are flipped over initially to choose from, and to hopefully bid high enough to allow yourself to choose these tiles first to place onto your tableau. There are scoring criteria to, in which you place some of these tiles. They need to, you get bonuses for matching frames, you get penalties for matching the same type of picture next to one another, and leftover paintings that are not drafted affect what is scored. And so the ones that are left over will tend to be more in vogue, right? Because they're of a less it's in more scarcity, and so those will score more points at the end of the game. This game was very interesting. I had a lot of fun playing this game because it offered a lot of different ways to think about how to play this game correctly, right? And so it's a relatively simple game, but knowing, and I should also mention that you have a stack of bidding values from 1 to 20, and once you use one, it goes away. And so knowing which cart or thing to use to bid for certain tiles, it's very reminiscent of something like El Grande for player turn order, right? And why you would use those different numbers is interesting, because sometimes the tiles that are flipped over, and every set of tiles is chosen from one player to the other. So one player will choose what is offered to be bid upon, and so that's kind of like Castles of Mad King Ludwig as well. And so if there are a lot of tiles that you don't want, then you might bid low, or you might bid high because you want to avoid a certain tile, right? If there are a bunch of tiles that you really enjoy, you bid low because you can save your high numbers for later, and you can use whatever is on that board. Whether you should try to place big pictures first or go small first or somewhere in the middle makes this game feel very interesting, and reapproaching it over and over again. So I find this game to be very replayable. The artwork is really nice. It's really aesthetically fun to look at and feel and place on in person, and so I did have the benefit of playing that in person as well. But mechanically, this game is very smooth, very interesting. I think if you like the games that I've mentioned before, as well as like Nidavellir, this game kind of feels like that in terms of how streamlined and but interesting the mechanisms are and how well they come together to form this game, right? So high recommendation from me. I really enjoyed this game, and I would love to play it again. The last game that I want to talk about today is Toy Battle. This is a new game by Paolo Mori. I just recently reviewed Alte, which is a much heavier game than this one, but this one is kind of like a lane battler, where you are drawing troops and placing them onto this board, and the goal is to create a line that goes all the way directly to the opponent's headquarters, right? And that gets you victory, as you can see here. It's a very quick game. There's a lot of different types of tiles that you can draw. All of these do have different, abilities and strengths that you can try to mess around with. It reminded me of like video games like, what is it? Clash of Clans? No, not Clash of Clans, but Battle Royale, Clash Royale, as well, because that's what the map actually looks like. But it also reminds me a little bit of General Orders, which is a war type game that utilizes similar mechanisms in terms of having a continuous row from your headquarters through your troops to wherever you are trying to control for points. So I know a lot of people have talked about the randomness that is in this game. There is quite a bit. I guess that's why your hand is so large, in having enough troops to be able to place onto the board and react to what your opponent might have. But there's still a strong semblance of randomness to this game. When I played it, it kind of felt like I was playing Challengers, which is another game that it reminded me of. I think Challengers does have an element of randomness because it's basically flipping a card over playing war, but you can kind of customize and strategize your deck with drafted options in between rounds that makes it feel more grandiose and interesting to me. In this game, it was pretty straightforward, pretty fun. I think you can play this with younger players, kids, maybe pre-adolescent players might be able to understand what is going on in this game, and maybe that is the target audience, or to include that audience as well. And so while it wasn't super intriguing to me, maybe there is an element of strategy to this game hidden behind some of the randomness, but it's a pretty light game, and if it's kind of up your alley in terms of just more fun forward, I suppose, rather than more strategic in other games like Onitama, more of an abstract. It's definitely not. It doesn't lean towards those more abstracted type of military-based chess-like type of games. This one's more, I guess, fun-forward and random, but perhaps it is fun. So, you can give this a shot on Board Game Arena if you so choose. So those are all the games that I wanted to talk about in this video. There were a couple of others that I did and was able to play that I just don't feel like I need to talk about at this moment, but maybe I will in the future if I get to play those again. But I really enjoyed the spread of these games that I played throughout the last 2 months. In addition to playing a bunch of my favorite games, I'm hoping to really work through being able to play games live and demonstrate some of those games live for you with my own table and with my own hand. I feel like I'll be able to get a lot more enjoyment and fulfillment out of the physical copies of games that I do own, rather than just being able to play it and show it digitally through Board Game Arena or otherwise. And so I'm looking forward to tinkering with that. So stay tuned for more of that type of content, but thank you regardless for making it to the end of this video and for joining me and scheduling an appointment with me today. Hope you schedule another one in the future, and I'll catch you on the next one.